What's up, everybody? Demonback, and welcome to the second episode of Godzilla Explained. And spoiler alert, of course. Now, in this episode of Godzilla Explained, we are going to be talking about everything from the way Shin Gojira's body works, the multiple form thing, the tail, what's going on there, and just all of that stuff, including his origins as well. There's been multiple of you guys who've been asking me about his origins, so let's get into that. Now, this movie stuck very much in line with the 1954 film in terms of Godzilla is actually an abomination. He is not supposed to be Godzilla. He is just this mutation. He is the mistake of mankind. And in the 54 movie, of course, he was awoken and deformed by the bomb. In this movie, he's actually created by nuclear waste, which is very cool. It's a cool spin on the whole atomic bomb situation here. Now, Shin Gojira in this movie, the way he's created actually is there are these microorganisms living underneath the sea, and people dump nuclear waste into the water, reportedly near Odo Island, which is a cool reference. And these little microorganisms bunch into one, and then they just become this little microorganism, or they become this little, like, I guess we could call it a tadpole, but we don't see it in the movie, so, or at least we reportedly don't see it in the movie. Once again, I have not seen it. I'm just saying what these people said and explaining it. Now, what happens is these little things, then they consume the nuclear waste, they eat it, and they continue to grow. They continue to grow to the point where they became Godzilla's first form we see in the movie, which is actually this form we see right here, which is more of an eel-like Godzilla. As you guys can see right here, he has gills that spew blood-like liquid out. He's got somewhat of the dorsal fins that we can recognize. The eyeball is pretty big. This is more of an aquatic creature, as you can tell from the design, and we'll talk about why here in a second. So he is more of an aquatic Godzilla, and we got another picture of what that design looks like here. This is, of course, the Bandai Creations figure version of it. Once again, we got the gills. This one just has a little bit more color, so we can see the redness and all that stuff. Moving on, here's what it looks like in the actual movie. He runs across the ground, and if what the directors have said is true, where Godzilla is a combination of all organic material or whatever, then we can assume that he is consuming organic material, aka people, during this scene and the other scenes that he's in. We can take that. We can assume that that's happening, and we can assume that he has consumed other stuff already, including the nuclear waste, to get to this size. Now, the way that Godzilla's body works is just like in Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, where, also similar to that movie, Godzilla is this microorganism turned into kaiju. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Because that was Destoroyah's origins. He was a microorganism turned into a kaiju because of the oxygen destroyer. This time it's just the nuclear waste that plays the factor instead of the oxygen destroyer. Very cool, very reminiscent of Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. But what's going on here with the multiple forms is, or what's going on here with the way Godzilla's body works is, just like in Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, his body is a nuclear reactor. He's a living incarnation of a nuclear abomination, I guess. He's a nuclear creature. He is born from the nuclear radiation, and that plays a big part in the way his body works. We'll talk about what happens in the movie here in a second. So, this is his second form. This is his third form, aka Turkeyzilla, for those of us who still don't like it. I personally am over it. I think they're all pretty cool. So this is his third form. Once again, there's the eye. Still, he's an aquatic creature, so the eye wouldn't look like it would for a land creature. More of the normal Godzilla dorsal fins that we see, that we're used to. He's taken more of his Shin Gojira form here. The tail is still messed up at this point already. Here's the Bandai figure version of it. Very red in color tone, which is weird. He switches from kind of a greenish, grayish color to a red, and then back to a blackish gray color. Here he is in the movie. Don't know what he's doing there, but who knows? Oh, this might be his actual evolution. Okay. So, yes, what happens in the movie is this second form comes up on land and starts charging through this city, and then it freezes in position, and the military thinks, okay, well, is it dead? And then it mutates into this creature right here, this second form, and when that happens, a very cool song starts playing. This one right here. And he turns into this creature, which is super cool. The music cues are supposedly amazing. And just based off that one, if that's how all the music cues are, I am really excited to see the way this movie is handled with the music and the sound design in general, because the sound design is all stripped straight from the Showa series, which is cool. Now, so this is, I'm assuming, his evolution when he turns into his second form, and then he begins his assault. Here he is, I'm assuming, returning to the sea. Now, here's the interesting thing. So he turns into this form, he pretty much loses the gills, he's still an aquatic creature, and here's why he's an aquatic creature. Well, first of all, he was a microorganism that lived under the sea. Second of all, his body needs the cool. It needs the cold water in order to cool him down, because just like an actual nuclear reactor, you need to keep that stuff cold. Otherwise, you'll have a meltdown. Otherwise, you will have an explosion. So he needs to keep himself cooled down, so he heads back into the ocean, a weakness that they exploit later in the movie. So that's what's going on there. And then he, of course, turns into his third and final form, Shin Gojira, the one we see in the trailer. Yes, for those of you guys who are upset about the arms still, get over it, first of all. Second of all, the legs aren't that bad as you guys made them out to be, even though I did contribute to the legs, but I never had a problem with the arms. Anyways, this is his final form, so he doesn't evolve any more than this, but I'm assuming that he could. I'm assuming that this isn't his final form. If we do get a sequel to Shin Gojira, which they do leave the door open to a sequel, I would imagine that he would be even more evolved, be probably taller. His skin would probably not have these cuts and crevices in them. I would imagine that he would look more like the Godzilla we all know and love, but he would still retain his Shin Gojira type look. And I would assume that he'd just be a bigger, stronger version of what he is in the movie, because, you know, he is still evolving. They do just halt that at the end of the film. So he turns into that form where his body can now cool itself, and that plays a big point in the ending of the movie. Not to spoil anything for the ending of the movie, but that does play a pretty big factor, the cooling factor. Now, here's some conclusions we can draw from Shin Gojira's atomic breath, considering we know he's a nuclear reactor. I mean, this movie seems to make it clear that this Godzilla needs to maintain himself some way or another. So one theory that I would like to throw out there is, what if his atomic breath is not only just a defense mechanism, a weapon, what if it's also his way of cooling himself down? Now, we know the first two forms, the second and third form that we actually see in the movie, they don't have this atomic breath because we don't see it. Well, that's not to say that they don't have it, that's just to say that we don't see it. But what if, because this Godzilla's on land so long, he has to use his atomic breath because he has to just get rid of all this excess nuclear energy, otherwise he'll melt down. I think that would be a really cool thing if they make a sequel to this movie that they could explore, explaining that's why he uses it, explaining that's why it spews out of his back and his tail is because he just needs to expel it, and his body allows him to one way or another through different parts of his body, which goes back to play into my open wound slash inner body theory that we talked about in the first episode of Godzilla Explained. If you want to go check that one out, please do so. Moving on. Now here's a picture of the tail. This is actually a new tail, or a new picture. You guys are all drawing the wrong conclusion here, and I'm going to explain why. Yes, this looks like an eye socket. Yes, this looks like a mouth. No, this is not a face. No, this is not a living creature. We actually do know at the end of the movie that Shin Gojira does have things growing out of his back. That's the other thing that we're here to talk about, is that there are humanoid creatures that come out of Shin Gojira's back of his tail in the final part of the movie, in the last scene of the movie. Now, this is actually just what we can assume is him replicating himself. Earlier in the movie, it's explained that his cells work much like the way the Gargantua cells work. They can just regenerate a whole new kaiju all on their own. They can recreate this whole monster on their own. And that's explained when there's a scene where reportedly scientists mess with one of Godzilla's cells and form it like origami, and supposedly that gives them the answers that he can asexually reproduce using that kind of regeneration mechanism. And so the things seen at the end of the movie where they're coming out of his tail are just probably the next evolution of Godzilla. Here's why. They would not be the same version of Shin Gojira that we see in the movie. They would not be the same Godzilla that we see in the movie, because that Godzilla started out as tiny little microorganisms turned into this 4-stage type abomination creature, and these things that come out of his tail at the end of the movie would probably be not only a mix of the organic material that he would have consumed, aka the people, but they would have also been a mix of himself. So that is why the humanoids that are coming out of his tail have Godzilla spines. That is also why they're reportedly about 50-ish feet tall, based off the fact that they are a good portion size of his tail. I'm assuming this is not one of their faces. If it is, that would be interesting, but people who have seen the movie have also said that they don't think this is a face and that this didn't really play a part in the movie, so this is just a design choice. I think people are reading into it too much. Also, we did know there was going to be a face-looking thing in the tail based off this shot from the trailer. Please note how it's the same side of the tail on both pictures here. I'm going to disprove the whole face theory right here. Boom. That's the other half of the tail. Notice how there is no face on this other half of the tail. That is actually because I do believe that this is more of a pareidolia effect thing, where people are just reading into this because their brain can make the connection. I don't think this is an actual face. I think that, as we can see here, it doesn't carry over to the other side, so it doesn't really mean anything. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Godzilla Explained. It was a bit of an extended episode. I do apologize for that, but we did cover quite a bit of ground here, so thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. D-Man out.